This is a Glass Box Media podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to another special edition. Just kidding, it's just a regular edition of My Worst Date. I'm
Getting
Cassie.
people amped up.
I know,
Keegan.
right?
I'm Christina, episode 178.
Oh my God.
We have a special announcement.
Yeah, we do.
Took us 178 episodes, but guys, we now have an audio engineer.
Yeah, we
Oh,
do.
God bless it.
Someone that is going to be editing our episodes. We'd like to introduce Thomas.
Yeah, we've talked about Thomas. I've talked about Thomas on this podcast before. I've definitely said, like, my friends, Thomas and Sarah.
Yeah.
But Thomas has been working in music for a really long time. So he knows all the ins and outs. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God,
The docile tones.
it sounds so
Dulcet
pristine.
tone.
The docile tone.
That's not
Not
what
on
I
this
meant.
podcast. Not with these ladies.
No, and also if you hear us be like, Thomas, cut that out. That's what we're talking about.
But
so.
Thomas, keep this in
Yes.
because we're really excited to have you.
Yay.
The other thing that I feel like is important to address that I think all of us looked at and kind of tilted our head.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I already know what you're talking about because we tilted our heads.
Yeah.
It's
Pete
exactly.
Davidson.
I
and
like
Kim
that you just
Kardashian.
said that this was important to address. You're like,
Yeah.
the important news.
Now, listen, like, I am never going to shame a rebound.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, having been through a divorce, you know, I know what my very first date
The
was.
Pete Davidson slander on this podcast. I swear to God. Listen,
And to be fair, we
Our-
don't know that they're dating. They
We do
literally were like on a ride.
I
And in
didn't know
fact-
they knew each other.
well, she
True.
just hosted SNL. So they almost definitely met
And
on
that's
SNL.
the gateway drug to Pete.
Apparently. Yeah,
Right.
apparently, because that's how he met Ariana Grande as well. And we don't know that they're dating. In fact, I would say that they're not. This feels like
Yeah.
a PR setup if I've ever seen one, like
Yeah.
just a thing to get people talking. However, I don't know, man. Maybe there's something about Pete, and he says it's not the size of his dick. So
He would.
I don't know. He did a stand-up where he was like, everybody likes to make jokes about the fact that I have a huge dick. But he's like, I actually think that was Ariana being shady at the end of our last relationship, like setting me up moving forward. Because people would get with him thinking that his dick was big. And then it was just average size. Then the disappointment, you know what I mean?
Disappointed looks. Oh no, that's petty.
That's
That's
good.
hilarious.
That's a level
brutal.
petty I aspire to.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
brutal.
Well, you know, I have been wrong before. I was fairly certain that J-Lo and Ben Affleck was just a stunt, and
There you
looks
go.
like they're
They seem
going
very happy.
strong. So, you
Riding
know,
high.
I am not the one to illuminate the situation.
I don't think. Like,
Yeah.
I would say if I had to pick an opposite of Kanye,
Well,
like
I mean-
Pete Davidson seems like lighter, silly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
but also
Like,
troubled. And I'm like, Kim,
the
I
vibe
feel
is-
like,
Loves the project.
yeah, I feel like maybe back away from, like, find somebody like stable. Like, who do I want to see her with? You know what I mean? Like, I want to see her with like somebody who's just like got their shit together.
I want to
like,
see her with herself for a while. I want to
Yes,
see her to
ma'am.
buckle down and get that fucking past the bar because I'm actually really excited about the work that she wants to do.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I want to see for a minute. Fuck around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But don't get serious about these men.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with Pete Davidson. I think Pete Davidson is exactly that. Fuck around.
Well, it's that, and it's also like, hey, my sister's getting a lot of attention for being with like a skinny,
Yeah.
tall, tattooed white guy.
They do seem to follow each other on style, right? They're like, we like basketball players. Just kidding. We like
Rappers.
rappers.
Just kidding. We like
Oh,
tall, skinny,
dudes.
tattooed white guys.
Dude, you nailed it.
Thematic.
It's the sister dynamic, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit of
Competition.
competition.
Which is just weird. It's so weird.
Dude,
I don't have any
having
sisters, so I don't know what to tell you about-
exactly. It's And especially with them doing like where they came from and how the focus has all been on their relationship for so long.
Sure.
I guarantee you there's some interesting dynamics there, some competitive dynamics.
Did you ever watch the show?
I did.
A couple of times.
Way back when, in the beginning days.
Yeah.
Like
Never saw it.
when Kylie and Kendall were still kids, I watched it.
Okay.
And I feel like it was enjoyable back then. It was like, yeah, it's kind of like they're like vapid California girls with too much,
money and time.
Too much. But they didn't even have like crazy money. I mean, for a time when we were watching like The Hills and stuff like that, it seemed very, very similar. And I enjoyed the show at that point in time before things went like really far off the rails.
Yeah, it was kind of the time too where like the Osbournes.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like the kind of like looking at a zany family, like this zany Beverly Hills family,
and the sisters were relatable. Like they were like they'd beat up on each other,
right,
and like talk shit on each other, but then they would go out and have like a lot of fun, and it seemed like fun. Like I was like, oh, if I had sisters, that's what it would be like. Right. It would be like that, and that would be like a good time for me.
It definitely transformed. It became something entirely different. Whereas before, it seemed somewhat attainable, I guess.
Yeah, relatable.
Yeah,
because they still went to work. They had a shop called Dash, a clothing store, and they still like quote unquote went to work.
Yeah.
You know?
They went to this restaurant called like Chin Chin that's on
the
Sunset
Chin
Strip.
Chin.
Oh,
Jesus. It's not really
fancy.
that fancy.
No, it is not. It is not.
So it's like...
It's like
It's
P.F.
strange.
Chang's.
Yeah.
It's LA's P.F. Chang's.
It's totally weird how that family has evolved. Like, it's so strange to see it. But I will say, I watched Kim Kardashian's opening monologue on SNL, and I thought it was...
I didn't watch it.
She did not do her own writing. It's apparent that she didn't do her own writing, but I don't think a lot of them do. But her delivery was actually pretty good, and they went in on everybody.
Ooh.
She went in on like the OJ connection.
Oh,
I
heard about that.
In on like everybody, the sisters, Kanye.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, I will give her credit. I think that the world really doesn't know how smart she is, kind of the same way that like, Paris Hilton.
Sure. Jessica Simpson,
who I think actually that's another really good one to bring up because that picture of her that she shared, I thought was so brave.
I also didn't even know it was her.
What picture?
She shared a picture this week. She's been 4 years sober, and she shared a picture of the morning after she like decided, and her picture,
she's swollen.
Yeah,
from drinking. Is it drinking?
Yeah. And I was like, it's making me emotional right now. It's bringing me to tears because I just think it's an incredibly brave thing to do. I think alcohol is so ingrained in our culture. I've had my own like roller coaster relationship with it, and I just amazed by anyone, especially like because social media is so fake and so filtered. You shared that thing of the hashtag no filter filter.
Dude,
that is
like,
so
I mean, and that is something that I go back and forth. Like my other podcast, Your Angry Neighborhood Feminist, has an entire episode on the Kardashians because in some ways I think that like they're unfairly ridiculed in certain ways. And I think that people undermining like Kim Kardashian's intelligence and things like that are like not cool and definitely like rooted in like the patriarchy. However, what I will say is what that family has done as far as like contributing to norms on social media,
right,
and what we now expect as far as like the beauty standard and like the negative impacts that it's had on girls and women and just kind of like across the board. Like because that
You're
shit is
wrong.
so fucking prevalent now. Like it is just so prevalent to like manipulate your photos and even things like no filters on like your and you know, I will use a filter on an Instagram story because it's fun and like most of the time people know it's that. But if you're going to call your filter no filter and you're blurred to oblivion, and your lips are bigger and your nose is smaller, but hashtag no filter,
but also too, that just says everything you need to know about what you should look like. Your lips should be bigger.
Exactly.
Your nose should be smaller.
Exactly.
That's
and
all. It's
really fucked up. Like my self-image. I can't imagine what it must be like growing up in that. And then
we don't have to imagine.
Yeah.
Facebook has done the studies
Yeah.
on exactly what it's doing to teenage girls, and it's contributing to the rising suicide rates.
Yeah.
It's contributing to terrible like issues with disordered eating, body dysmorphia, all kinds of things. It's literally scientifically proven how terrible Instagram is for I think anybody of any age, because I've definitely noticed its impact on women my own age and how they feel about their body.
Well,
and
just in general, you know, like I was doing some research just for funsies, just for some light reading for myself, where I was looking into, I was having this epiphany about like how every millennial I know has very bad anxiety or an anxiety disorder. And like, why is that? So I was like Googling, like, are the rates of anxiety and depression actually higher among millennials and Gen Z? And they are actually higher. Like it's been quantified. And part of that is because for millennials, it changed so suddenly at a time when we were the most vulnerable, which is like middle school, high school, is when like social media was introduced. And so our relationships with our peers changed overnight. And like the way that like we viewed the world and the way that we were exposed to the world, what completely changed.
Sure.
And like what that does to your psyche, like it actually can really like mess you up. And then for Gen Z, they've never known a time without it, which is different. It presents different issues.
It's the constant,
but also really bad issues. You know?
I think that it also opens up the question to how much more aware and open to having anxiety, having depression
it's
is.
Definitely part of it.
Because I think that there's also this thing like I don't think that I definitely don't believe that boomers or Gen X are immune to these things. I think that they are just now starting to be things that you can talk about.
Yeah. And well, also you used to be able to like just get meth as a housewife. So
well, yeah. But the other side of this
yeah.
is too, I remember growing up when I was younger and they were like, you know, you didn't want to have any kind of like depression or anything like that, because if that showed up, oh my gosh, somebody could come back and say you had that, and you just never got shit like that treated. It was a very old mentality of like, you don't, even if you know there's something wrong, you just don't get that shit treated because you don't want that to show back up. What if you're trying to get a job and they know you've got depression?
God forbid you're labeled as a problem child. You know what I mean? It follows you around. You get put on a separate track, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, I mean, we could have a whole podcast about how we feel about social media, but you know, we're still, you know, we try to create our own little corner, our own little safe space. So shout out right now to those worsties that have joined our My Worst Date group on Facebook/Meta.
Right. Like
you guys are the
Facebook/Meta. Oh my God.
And we love you. That own little corner of a just fun, light, safe, supportive space. If social media was more like that, then we wouldn't have anything to talk about.
Here's the thing. Technology is always going to be a double-edged sword. Like it always will be. Like part of the reason why we can have conversations about mental health is because of access to social media and the internet. It's because we are having conversations. We're able to relate to, it's not just us in our own little bubbles. We're able to see someone on the other side of the world who's going through the exact same thing we're going through. And it does allow that, you know, so there are positive things about social media. It just has to be entered into in a way that's like very aware. You have to be very self-aware when you're on social media. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I spend fucking forever just like scrolling, letting the algorithm do its work. But I'd say that that's also why it's really important to know your limitations. It's why I'm not back on Facebook. And it's why you should curate your feed. As much as possible. If someone's making you feel
otherwise
bad,
you're going to end up in Dallas waiting for the second coming of JFK Jr. Oh my God.
That was the most evil cackle we have ever had. That was some Sanderson sister shit right now. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, Keegan, I know you were talking earlier. I am very excited about the FMK idea.
Okay, so because we were talking off mic about Pete Davidson, because first of all, I was looking at someone, speaking of social media, I follow this woman called Hello Teffy on TikTok, and she's hilarious. I love her. And she was talking about, she like woke up out of like a day after Halloween stupor, still fully in makeup, looking a mess. But it's like it's like this thought like just propelled her awake, thinking about Pete Davidson's DMs. And she's like, his DMs have to be filthy. She's like, if I could see anyone's DMs, it would be that man's DMs, because he's just pulling tail after right.
And there's also some people who I think, like some hot guys, that you would slide respectfully into their DMs.
Yeah. Not Pete Davidson.
Is not one.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is some like triple X rated.
You're shooting your shot with the dirtiest shit you have. Out the gate. First thing.
You're like, I bet you like this.
And he's like, whoa, what? I have never seen that in my life.
You're like, I want you to give me a tonsillectomy.
Oh, God.
But I've said it before on this podcast.
Thomas.
I know. He listens anyway. He knows. Listen, this is how we get down. This is what you signed up for, my dude.
And also, that's the title of this episode.
Poor Thomas. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. I've said it before on this podcast talking about Pete Davidson, where it's a like, is he hot or is he just tall situation? Because that man is like well over 6 foot. And, you know, listen, preferences are preferences. We've talked about it many, many times.
Yep.
I know, especially for tall women, like having a partner who is as tall or taller than them is a priority for issues
For
that
some
have
people,
nothing to do with them. For some people, not
For
across
some,
the board.
Here's the thing. We've talked too about like the fact that I have always had an affinity for soccer guys who most of the time are not generally
super tall.
as tall as I am. You know what I mean? And I'm like heavily attracted to them. And a couple of times I've gone on a date with guys that have ended up being shorter than me. A lot of times it's their insecurity about me being taller.
But I mean, it has definitely become a thing on the internet to kind of like clown on short guys. And while I think like guys who get in their feelings like heavy about stuff like that.
Have you seen the TikTok where she's like, part 3 of me just going online and calling guys short kings?
Oh, it's hilarious. It is funny. Okay, I will say this. So what she does is when people are doing TikTok lives, you know, like the way that TikTok lives works, you can just like type anything and they'll read it as it comes in. So she just goes on random men's TikTok lives and just says, short king with like a crown. And some of these men are gracious. Some of these men are like, oh, okay, cool, whatever, keep it moving. Some of them,
most of them are like, short king. What are you talking about? I'm 6 foot.
I'm tall.
They're always
they get up,
6 foot.
They get up and they stand up.
So funny. Tears. Yeah.
But you know, part of why they get so defensive about it is because it is something like that people like to clown on a lot, like online. It is kind of a silly thing because it's like, do you know all of the beauty standards that women have to live up to, like day in and day out? Like, chill. If somebody's calling you short, like, relax. But I would say, I would like to give it up to our short kings.
Okay. Yeah.
For like one second here, because there are a lot of men who I think very hot.
Yeah.
Very hot.
We know my affinity for Tom Cruise.
I do. You know, who are well under that 6 foot marker. Okay.
Okay.
Who I would let get it. Who probably would, you know, honestly, it's probably like God was like, we can't give you more height because if we did, you take over. You know what I mean?
A very controversial.
Oh no. Why?
I am so attracted to Elijah Wood.
Oh no! I can go get his picture out of my trunk right now. Do you know how many Elijah Wood pictures I had hanging up on my wall?
Girl. His eyes are magnetic.
Girl,
and
stop it.
Frodo can get it. Get it.
That's not even controversial. Do you know? And this is embarrassing, especially as a woman who did not even change her last name. I wrote Mrs. Wood. I vividly remember it. I remember it because I was going to school. Mrs.
Keegan Wood. Mrs. Keegan Marie Barbie Wood.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's so bad. It doesn't even sound good.
Ms. Keegan Wood.
Like Keegan Wood doesn't even
No.
sound good at all. But all I could imagine was I was like, our DNA would make just the most beautiful little baby, like big, like blue eyes.
I need to get one of those apps where we could see, because you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I need to see what you and Elijah Wood's baby would look like immediately, if not sooner.
He's like, please block this woman immediately.
It comes with a red flag.
Just a restraining order gets sent right away, straight to jail.
He's like,
immediately.
however, very good looking baby, but no, absolutely not, ma'am.
Oh, but he is a short king. Yeah,
He is a
he's
short king.
like 5'6" or something. Yeah.
Okay.
You know who I'm gonna go with? Oh, sorry,
No.
Cassie. Okay.
I want to be surprised by yours
Okay.
because this is your category.
It is.
So I'm
and
going
I
to say
didn't tell
mine
you.
real quick. I know.
Okay, you go first.
I'm going to go Mark Wahlberg.
Okay.
Short
Marky
king.
Mark.
Marky
How
Mark.
tall is he? Like 5'8"?
5'8".
Yeah.
Okay.
He's not super tall, but he is, I don't know. Like I definitely teenage me. That's the Mrs. Wahlberg.
Oh, sure.
You know, like
Sure,
that was,
sure.
I mean, Calvin
Okay.
Klein knew.
CNC Music Factory, right?
Okay.
Was that
No.
Was that him? Was
No.
it Marky Mark and the
Funky
Funky
Bunch.
Bunch?
Funky Bunch.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Kendrick Lamar.
Oh.
Because I didn't even know he was short, and apparently he is like 5'5".
Oh, he's
Like
so good
he's
looking.
short, but he's so good looking, and
genius.
he's like a fucking genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
Like he's one of those who I was just like, that was the universe saying, we gotta.
So hot.
We can't make you over 6 foot because it would be
No.
too overwhelming for
Right.
the
Oh,
rest of the world.
Yeah,
you
that's
know
not
what
fair,
I mean? It's not
actually.
fair.
Ooh,
yeah.
You're
This
smart. You're good looking.
is-
You can't also be tall.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
hard.
exactly.
I almost said high. I mean, you could be high, but you cannot be tall.
There's a lot going on here. These are three
Yeah.
very different individuals.
Yeah.
And
Different.
I actually think I'm like, because Mark Wahlberg has a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
Like he can be that
Yeah.
hard, tough guy, but
Yeah.
he's also so funny. He's
Yeah.
got a great sense of humor.
So funny. He's got
Elijah
those Wahlburgers too.
Is a fucking weirdo. And I
Yeah,
love that
I
about
love a
him.
weirdo.
I love that he's got that Frodo money so locked down that the
do
only
whatever he wants.
projects
Shit.
that he does right now are bizarre.
You know, I feel the same way about Daniel Radcliffe, like who's
Yes.
also a short
Yes.
king. It's like he got that Harry Potter money, and then he
can
was
do what I
like,
want.
I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna take the weirdest
Which
jobs.
I love. I love that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a middle finger. It's like, yeah, no, I do what I want. And I'm like, I love that attitude.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
And also access to the rest of the Lord of the Rings cast, which there's
You
some
know
hotties.
how I feel about
Okay.
Viggo Mortensen. 'Cause
There's
that
some hotties
is-
in that cast.
But then you also have Kendrick Lamar, who's like a fucking poet.
Yeah.
And so just like
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
All
think I-
very
He's gonna do it.
attractive
He's
too.
gonna do it to you, right?
I think
too,
I know
though.
what I'm gonna do. Actually,
I think I do too.
and this is I feel like this is going to be possibly very controversial.
Okay.
Of these three, I'm gonna fuck Kendrick Lamar.
Okay.
Because I feel like there's an intensity to
yeah.
him that being married to him would feel like a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd fuck to his own music? Because there are like 3 of his songs that I had on a sex playlist that were fire.
Here's the thing.
So
There are
is that weird?
How do you feel
Well, I
about
feel
listening
like
to yourself?
it would be
while we're
weird.
doing it?
I feel like it would be weird, but Kendrick Lamar is one of the only people who, if they suggested it, I'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
in.
there are most of the time I'd be like, oh, God, like, no. But if Kendrick Lamar was like, can we fuck to my own music? I'd be like, yeah.
I mean, like if Prince said that, I would.
also a short king, also yes.
Also, yeah, would.
Hard yes. So I'm gonna fuck Kendrick Lamar. I just think like I always end up in this situation with these FMKs where I'm like, it's someone who's too intense for me to be with, but someone who like I feel like we would have a great date. Like we're gonna have a date where it's just like you're in a room full of people, but you end up on the couch like near the fire having like a really intense conversation.
Yes.
Which is like,
and then no one else is there.
yeah.
Suddenly,
yeah.
and you're like you see nothing
I
else.
love those moments.
Me too. Me too.
That's
So
magic.
romantic.
That's
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah. And I do think Kendrick Lamar has been with the same woman since like
High school, right?
a long time. So love it. love it. But I do think that his like I don't think I can be married to a genius.
Yeah,
like, I just
it's
feel
true.
like it'd be a lot for me.
Well, yeah, because I mean, you're not like, and we've talked about it before. Like, I need to be priority number one.
Yeah.
So I'm just jealous. That
And you
way.
know who I think would make you priority number one? Elijah Wood. I'm gonna marry Elijah Wood.
Wow.
There you go.
I
Yep.
told you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna marry Elijah Wood because I feel like he does have that Lord of the Rings. Well, first of all, I mean, I owe it to my 13-year-old self.
Yes.
But
To
also,
be Ms. Wood.
Yeah.
But also, like, if he was like really into you, he doesn't need to work.
Exactly.
He has
I mean-
no like. We're not trying to make the bills. He's got freaking Lord of the Rings
And
money.
I feel like he's the type who would be passionate about what you want to do. So
Yeah.
I feel like he would be like, look, I've got Lord of the Rings money. I'm going to take like
Open to new
a
hobbies.
movie a year or whatever just because I want to.
Do you want to go to Bali with me?
Yeah. Or even
Yeah.
like, he'd be like, do you want to start a podcast company? I'll fund it. Like, he's like that type. Like, I feel like he would
He's
be
supportive,
supportive
yeah.
like that. And I feel like we would have just like a really cool, like chill life.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would be really chill. I feel like Marky
Filled with
Mark.
travel and like
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and he's got cool friends because he's been in the industry forever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just like, I feel like it would be a realistically like good life.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? Marky Mark has a different kind of intensity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he released his like what I do in a day thing, and it was like he wakes up at like 4:30 in the morning and is like doing like protein shakes and working out, and like I'm like,
Good for you.
good for you as long as you don't make me be in it.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure like what the vibe is there.
Mhm.
And then also I gotta see Jenny McCarthy on holidays, and I don't want to
why?
because she's married to his brother,
Yeah.
Oh,
Donnie. So
oh yeah, Donnie exists.
yeah, so
Yeah, I forgot about the family. Yeah.
also I stopped eating meat, and their empire is burgers. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm
All right.
I'm out on that one.
Okay.
Right
Cass, what are you doing?
I am going to marry Mark Wahlberg. I also owe it to my 13-year-old self.
I hear you.
In that way, but also too, he's got a really good sense of humor about himself. I think that he's the kind of guy who can like laugh at himself, and I like that. Like, especially if you're dating somebody that hot, like I need somebody who's like has a sense of humor.
I also feel like he's like humble. Like
Yes.
he doesn't
Yeah,
like he doesn't feel too far removed from his roots.
yeah,
And I feel like he's fun that like if I was going to be the protein shake workout kind of person, I need him as a kind of
Yeah.
coach and a partner.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be like shitty about it.
no.
But
I feel like he's gonna be like you can do it if you want, but
yeah,
and I would kind of probably
he'd be,
want to like
encouraging.
Yeah, it'd be
I
fun.
want to do it with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, he feels humble. He feels
Yeah.
like he's still connected to his roots.
Yeah, and he's been married to the same woman. Well, they've been together even before they got married for like they were together for like 12 years or some nonsense.
I don't know
before they
who
even
he's
got married. He's been with her for a long time. She was a model. They have like 4 kids now, and yeah, I mean, he seems like a fun guy to be with. Like he seems like I just love that. I love anybody who can just not take themselves too seriously. He
seems very
relaxed.
dad jokes.
And perfect.
Yeah.
yeah. No, for me, I'm in.
Yeah,
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
exactly.
Is that did I say I was gonna fuck him or marry him?
You said you were going to marry him. I think.
I
You said you owed it to your 13-year-old
Yeah, I
self.
did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna fuck
But you can
Kendrick
change your
Lamar then.
you can change your
Yeah.
answer. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yes.
yeah.
It's a good choice. It
It's a
really
good-
is.
He looks good in bed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because he might make love to your ear, but he is gonna fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
you
yeah.
It's
bad.
is the rhythmic changes and stuff like that. It's the imagination. I mean that those are all good qualities to
Yeah.
have.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Or he's gonna stop midway and be like, "I gotta write this down." And you're like, "What? What are you,
you know
writing
what?
down?"
You know what?
No.
The thing is, and I would never with anyone else, but with Kendrick Lamar, I'd be like,
Okay.
you know what? That's okay. Like, because what you're telling me right now is I just inspired a song. You go ahead.
Oh, my
You go
God.
ahead.
Oh
That-
God! I think Christina just orgasmed thinking about that idea. She's like,
She
"It's
loves
my
being
dream
amused.
come
I
true."
am really, really struggling with this one.
I know it's hard.
Yeah, Elijah Wood just doesn't do it for me.
I
man.
know. I get it. He's
just,
definitely look.
It's a type. He just feels very young.
It is embarrassing to me that I have like so many cutout pictures of Elijah Wood in this very room right
now. There's a lot of people who like him. I don't. It's just never been my.
Yeah, it's my younger nerdy self, and it's just those eyes. That is my number one like quality that hooks me too about a guy like that I'm attracted to. The first thing I noticed. So, all right, this feels right in my gut.
Go for it. Trust your gut.
No wrong answers.
I feel like Mark Wahlberg is the best at rough sex, and so I'm gonna fuck him.
You're probably right.
He seems like a wall, a little bit of the throat action.
Yeah,
he feels like, like tough, passionate, like
in Boston.
Boston, hair pulling, that kind of thing. So I think I gotta fuck Mark Wahlberg now, marriage wise.
Oh,
this is hard actually
because both of these are great choices.
They are. They're good. Honest, they're good marriage choices. Both of them, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta go with my. I have music in my heart. Yeah. So at the end of the
but
day,
you've made those mistakes before.
I know,
and she's willing to make it again. And you know what? I respect it.
The idea of trying.
It's for him,
and it really is. If I'm coming down to Kendrick and Elijah, I'm just like, I think I would have in this incredibly like fulfilling life of travel and hobbies and like interesting conversations with Elijah. But at the end of the day, is he going to write a song about me?
Well, and more than even writing a song about you, here's the thing, and this is what's going to solidify you knowing that you're right in this decision for you.
Yeah.
He is going to run his lyrics by you, right? He's going to read you what do you think of this?
Oh my
rough
God.
Drafts of his poetry, of his art.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is good for you. Yeah.
As my peanut butter and jam.
It feels good for you. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Yeah. Elijah Wood wasn't even my choice, and I'm like, that's good. That's all right.
I know it was my choice, but I had to go first and listen to you guys, and I was like, I really have to like dig deep.
It's hard going last. It's hard going first, and it's hard going last because you're like trying to think through it, but the last you're like, oh, you guys put out some very valid points.
Yep.
Yeah, you've convinced me. I almost feel like this is our fuck, marry, kills are very much giving speech and debate in terms of just like it's like convince me, of your argument. Convince me, you know what I mean?
And we have convinced her that Kendrick is the right call.
And
I agree.
Not the right one for me to marry, but I think not a bad choice for you. It may not be a forever love,
right?
Maybe not, but I think good.
I think it's a strong choice for you.
Yeah. Well, you guys want to take 5 and we'll come back with stories?
Sounds good.
And we're back. All right, Christina.
Okay. We got this story from a listener. Her name is Summer, and the subject is the story of why I started putting last names in my contacts.
Oh, okay. That's smart. I accidentally texted my neighbor the other day because it just like popped up and I was like, this is the right person.
This is the Dan I
mean
to speak with. Okay, so I just want to start off by saying I love the podcast, obvi. I am late to the game, though, and I'm only on the X-Files episode.
Oh, wow.
As somebody that updated the chart today, she's got a lot of enjoying to go, so yay.
Oh, it's going to be a while before she hears her story then.
Well, I emailed her and let her know, so maybe she'll skip ahead. I have been wanting to write in for a while, but wanted to get caught up before I did. That is until I listened to this episode. Although I have a laundry list of bad dates I would love to tell you gals about.
Oh, I can't wait.
My first contribution is going to be an X-Files/shame receipt. Maybe. I ain't ashamed of my actions, though I probably should be.
Oh, honey.
I love it.
I love you already.
What's your sign? I want to know. It's a Leo. She's like,
I do what I do.
I do what I want.
So a bit of backstory. I'm actually from Ohio as well. Hell yes, Midwest. Several years ago, I dated a guy that lived 3 hours north of me who referred to himself as the trailer park king.
Oh, no. Red flag number 1.
Why do I think she's from Cincinnati and that guy is from Columbus? No, she said 3 hours north. I'm like, trailer park king. That sounds very Columbus.
Yeah. Listen.
Oh no, we dated for a few months and then he broke up with me via text on my birthday.
The Trailer Park King broke up with you?
No regrets.
That day is the day I stopped being a straight edge and adventured into the wonderful world of drowning my sorrows in a bottle of wine.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward like a year or so and he zombies out of the blue, tells me he broke up with me because he was addicted to pills and was too embarrassed to tell me. Now, my obsession with very trashy men and morbid curiosity brought us back together.
Hi, and I think she was me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
a
oh,
project.
yeah, exactly. I'm like,
fix you.
Oh, yes, I loved a fixer-upper.
Mm-hmm. Now, it lasted all of 2 months before I ghosted him. I know, I'm a terrible person, but it used to be my out because I was awkward and hated confrontation.
Yeah.
So, maybe not a Leo then.
Maybe not a Leo. Yeah. Not a fire sign.
Yeah. Another 2-ish years, fast forward, I'm enjoying life, working at Starbucks, and we get a new employee who immediately starts talking about being a gamer. I, too, am a huge gamer, so it's always fun to meet new people to join the group of people I play with. That night, as my crew is getting ready for some intense drunk gaming, I shoot a text to my new coworker with our Discord channel name.
Amazing.
And tell him to join us if he wants.
No.
Here's where it gets painfully awkward.
I can't wait.
The voice that comes through the chat sounds strangely familiar.
He did not get on.
But not like my new coworker's voice. Turns out when I updated my iPhone, all my old saved contacts were restored. Also, just so happens that my new coworker and the ex that I ghosted have the same name.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
So, of course, I texted the wrong person and sent the dude I ghosted 2 years prior a text just casually asking to play games with me.
I'm gonna say this, okay? And this might be controversial, might piss some people off.
Uh-oh.
There are some names that just have to be retired. All right? I feel like there are some names that I'm just like, there are too many.
We have a lot of mics.
That we got
a lot of mics.
so many.
A lot of Chris's.
A lot of Chris's.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, there are, and if it's your name, more power to you. I'm just saying, like, there are certain names where I'm just like, I feel like moving forward, we have to stop. Because like this is how things get confusing.
It was like John.
Enough.
When my when my grandparents' age,
Yeah.
there was so many
My
Johns.
grandpa's name is Johnny.
My grandfather's name is John.
There
My
you go.
other grandpa's name was John, but he went by Jack because there were so many
Enough.
fucking Johns.
And not like literally, like guys, just there are so many unique names out there. I'm not
But
saying
now you can name your kid John, and it's
Or
like there's no other. Well, yeah, our friends. I don't know why I said that like that, but our friend has a baby named Johnny, and there's not going to be another Johnny in his class.
Or just be the nickname you want to see in the world. Be like that guy that's like, oh, it's Blue Shoes.
Yeah, I really feel like you gotta go by something else. You gotta go by something else because I would argue any name that's in the Bible, including John, I'm like, time to give it a rest. Okay, like Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Stop.
But then we have the other side of the equation where you have like Elon Musk's kid who's named like,
no. Okay, listen. There's a happy middle ground. There's a happy middle ground here for all of us. Okay. I'm just saying this situation wouldn't happen as much.
No, definitely. I don't even know how they're pronouncing that thing. But
oh no, I mean like the situation she's having would not happen as much if people were just come on.
So truly, I don't know what's worse, like that he's got the text to casually play games with me, or the fact that after 2 years of not speaking, he just thought, oh, cool, that sounds like fun, and join the chat. Anyway, I uncomfortably say, is this coworker's name here from work? Him. No, that text wasn't meant for me, was it?
Oh, no.
Me.
Honey.
Not really, but you're more than welcome to join us anyway. So he just plays with us like everything is cool. Quick ending to a long story. Somehow we ended up dating again.
What?
For about 2 months before I ghosted him again.
No. He got it. He got what he wanted out of that.
The cherry on top was when I got an email from Twitch about 2 weeks later saying he went live on a stream, and the title of the stream was "My Ex Dumped Me Twice. Watch me play games."
Oh! He's like, I'll tell you the whole story. Buckle up.
God.
Oh, Lord.
Wonderful.
That did happen once. Whenever I first started dating Anthony, I had an acting teacher also named Anthony, also with an M last name.
Oh no.
And I texted him like in the beginning, like an acting teacher. He was like fully in his like late 40s and I was in my early 20s at the time. And I don't remember what I said, but I do remember it was highly embarrassing, classified information. Okay. He's like, I think you have the wrong person.
You're like, I think I need you to come over and bang this out for me. Oh! He was like, whoa, hey.
It wasn't that aggressive, but you know.
Yeah.
But you know. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Sorry, Thomas. All right. Met this guy at a Halloween party, and this story is like kind of similar to the story I told last week. Met this guy at a Halloween party, and we ended up making out for a little bit. We decided to go on a date together and scheduled it for 3 days later. On the day of the date, he's being very vague about where he's taking me for dinner while talking over text. He picks me up at my place and tells me he's taking me to a great restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Very vague. Great restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
As we were driving around downtown, he says, "Oh, I need to make a quick stop. Do you mind?" I say that's fine, thinking he wants to pick up chapstick or Advil or something. Chapstick. How chapped were this man's lips that you were like, I thought maybe he wanted to pick up some chapstick.
I've had emergency chapstick situations before.
Me too.
Actually,
Me too.
If I'm
me
honest.
too. SOS. He blah, 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 blah. 10 minutes later, we pull into the Huntsman Cancer Institute parking garage. I tell him that I can wait in the car, but he insists I come in. I ask, why are we here? And he says, I just promised someone I'd come see them today. It would only take 5 minutes.
Oh, no.
He keeps telling me to come up with him. I start to feel bad and decide to just go in with him. We get to the hospital room and I say, I'll wait outside. I am waiting for 2 to 3 minutes when the door opens.
This is a first date.
A first date. A first date they met at a Halloween party. They've made out once. Okay. When the door opens, a woman introduces herself as his mother and says, "It's nice to finally meet you. We know you're really important to our son."
Oh, no.
I was so embarrassed and had no idea what to do. So I just went in as she kept ushering me inside. She pulls me into a long hug that I'm really not participating in. I quickly realized through the conversation that with his mom, that his dad is in the hospital bed and is dying from brain cancer.
This is,
awful.
Oh my God.
My date's mom keeps saying things about how good it is to finally meet me and how they wanted his father to meet me before he passed away.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
This is awful.
That is so
It's so bad.
awkward.
It's so bad. I am flabbergasted at what is happening and stay silent about the truth of their son. I realized through the conversation that he's been pretending to have a serious boyfriend for the past 9 months, and they all think it's me. I am speechless, but finally mutter, I think I should step outside and let you have your family time. My date then immediately says we are leaving and gives his parents a hug and kiss. We walk down to the garage, and he says, I just have one more stop.
Oh, no.
Oh,
After
my
this, you're like,
God, it keeps going? How?
At this point, I'm thinking I'm with a crazy person and just agree so as not to upset him and put myself in danger, all the while wondering if I should just run away. I get in the car and start to feel bad that he's going through all this and wondering how I'm going to get out of this situation. Instead of going to a restaurant, we pull up to what I find out is his sister's house.
Okay.
And as I'm
That's
sitting in
enough.
the car, the same thing happens. His sister comes running out to the car, introduces herself, and tells me to come inside and visit. Same type of conversations where everyone is assuming I've been dating him for 9 months and how it's great to finally meet me. All the while, I'm completely weirded out and starting to question my own sanity. I finally get enough courage to speak up and say we need to get to our dinner reservation. He had originally picked me up at 6:30 p.m. It is now 8:30 p.m.
Oh, no.
We get in the car and I decide to ask why he's telling his family that we've been dating for 9 months when I've only known him for 3 days. He ignores me, turns up the radio and starts singing loudly along to the music.
Okay,
no.
that's not. This is somebody that's in a real
Unsafe,
dark place.
unsafe.
Oh, no.
I get up the courage to turn down the music and say I'm not feeling well and ask him to take me home. He says, okay, but then pulls into a McDonald's drive-thru moments later and says, geez, you must be so hungry. We forgot to eat. As we are sitting in the car, I'm realizing I need to get out ASAP. I unlock the door and run. He quickly pulls out of line and almost hits me as he's driving up to me. I quickly duck into a coffee shop. He parks and walks in saying, what's wrong? Why are you acting crazy?
Why am I? Sir.
I tell him I've requested a lift. I didn't actually request one yet, and I'm going home. He keeps insisting I come with him and is pulling at my arm.
No.
There's a couple customers inside and a few baristas. He starts yelling loudly, and I say I need help. A wonderful barista intervenes and tells him he should leave or she's going to call the police. He starts uncontrollably crying and saying I'm a stupid bitch to do this to him after 9 months of, quote, bliss.
This
no,
person
this is
not
dark.
sad.
Well,
Oh,
it's not
honey.
well. I keep repeating I don't know him and that he needs to leave. He finally gets into his Land Rover and speeds off. I sat there for 45 minutes drinking a cup of tea and telling the barista about what just happened. He kept calling and texting me over and over, and I block his number. That night, I put in a request to change. Okay, this is scary. That night, I put in a request to change my locks at my apartment, a $300 fee, since he'd been in my apartment for about 10 minutes when he came to pick me up, and my spare key sitting on the counter was nowhere to be found.
No.
I have chills. I have chills.
Yeah. Thankfully, I never saw or heard from him again, but that was the worst day I've ever been on.
Listen.
Oh, wow.
That is layered.
As somebody that went through this year losing my dad, there was something really comforting, I guess, for me to get to bring Eric home to him in a way that was just like, look, like
I'll be fine.
I found like this, like I'm okay. It's just, it was a very strange, visceral feeling that I had to, because I'm not that type of person that's like, I need a man to take care of me or anything like that.
No, but you know your
something...
dad, and you know that like he probably felt some comfort knowing that you were with somebody who you loved, who loved you back.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe this person, was dealing with their father being sick and made up this fake relationship, and then just is like, that is just an intense thing to put a stranger through, and to not even like recognize that it's a weird thing that you're doing to that person.
I really feel like it
there's
has
a real
to be
level of disassociation that's happening for him.
Fully.
He's going through some stuff, and
I really feel like that has to be what's happening there. And clearly,
but
this person who wrote this story
therapists.
and clearly the person who wrote this story and felt empathy, was like, oh, I was feeling really bad for what he was going through.
No, but hang around for 2 hours and play the charade that he must have been playing is
but then
definitely like,
at that point, when it starts to feel like unsafe, because clearly this person is not connected to reality in any real way. It's scary, and thank God he was able to get into a place where he was with other people
who could help him.
I would have actually understood if they had gotten in the car after the whole hospital thing and he'd been like, thank you so much for going along with that. I know that was a really strange, uncomfortable thing. I had to do that for these kind of reasons. That I would understand, but the fact
still
that he was
fucked
just
up,
still fucked up to do to somebody, because that's an intensely emotional
Wow.
You have to warn someone before you put them through that, you can't, even if it's a lie, if it's something that you feel like you need to do for closure for your family, you gotta let someone know. You gotta get someone's consent to be in that situation, because I cannot
That is
imagine.
a real break from reality.
Yeah.
Ooh, wow.
Anyway.
Well, now I have to tell a story.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. Met a girl online. Everything seemed okay, and the conversations were good. So a few days later, we decided to meet for coffee and go to dinner. I show up at the cafe about 45 minutes early, order a coffee, intending to read for a bit. While I'm reading, I notice an older fellow start staring and taking far too much interest in me before leaving. Odd, but okay. Continue to read until about 10 minutes before our meet time, and then I text the girl that I'm already at the cafe. Shortly after, the odd older fellow comes back in the entrance, and this sets off my spidey sense. So I'm making my way to the other entrance when my date catches my arm and says hi. I tell her we should step out for a minute, getting a bad vibe from this guy. She asks me which one, so I describe him. It's her goddamn dad.
Oh, no.
Doing
Families.
advanced recon for her dates at 24 years old. I was a bit sketched out about that, but thought maybe she had some bad date history and possibly made sense. I meet her dad. He says they just want to make sure I was who I said I was and to enjoy the date. He leaves and he says, and she says being an only child has its downsides. Makes enough sense. We get coffee and chat for a bit, walk into a nearby park, and decide where to go for dinner.
Meanwhile, like on a bridge overlooking the dad.
For sure.
Out. He's like comes out of the bushes. He's got the
Binoculars.
little like camouflage and stuff.
Night vision goggles on.
We get to my car and she asks if I could take her home to grab a jacket before dinner. No big deal. We arrive at her place. She lives with her parents. And I talk to her mom and dad while the date grabs a jacket. They seem nice, but overbearing parents. Date calls me back to her room to meet her cat. And the entire time I'm meeting her cat, the parents are hawking nearby, obviously eavesdropping.
The entire time I'm meeting her cat. I love that sentence.
Yeah. It's obvious the date is dragging her, my date is dragging her feet for some reason. I said something about getting out to dinner before the rush, and her parents, who happened to be walking by, asked where we were going before they start a dialogue on local restaurants, which pivots to ordering delivery, carry out, and how we should just have dinner together at their place.
No.
Oh, I just got chills. I don't know.
I told them no offense, but I greatly prefer to dine in some place relaxed and get to know their daughter. They seemed really resistant to this.
She's 24.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Like, no, you're 24.
24 years old. Can you imagine?
Yeah, and we've talked
Can you
about
imagine
this
me doing that to Dylan?
Oh my God.
We've talked about this before, that it's okay to like stay and live longer, like with your
Sure.
parents.
Sure.
Like that's completely.
It's not okay for this. None of this is okay.
No,
This
if
is
you're
No,
too
because
far.
they're treating you like you're a 14-year-old. Like they're treating you like
100.
you're like a freshman in high school, and they
It's
need
really
to be.
awkward.
They need to have that kind
Chaperone.
of like, yeah, like it's very strange. Like lots of people get married at 24. Like what?
Right?
What? I mean, I guess that's not really a good.
I'm
marker,
agitated and ask if this is how her dates normally go. They said no. Normally we don't let her go out with men, but you passed the background check,
Ma'am.
and your messages to her made you seem nice, like you'd have dinner with us. I was flabbergasted. They ran a background check on me, read our exchanges online as well as advanced recon, and expected me to have dinner with two additional people I hardly knew. And when I was expecting a date, I told them that this was absolutely not working for me and that they are being extremely over to the top with their expectations and precautions.
Oh, you know what always goes well? Critiquing parenting.
But, I mean,
but at this point,
it's
you're
like,
done.
it's-
well, yeah, you know that
you're
this
done.
Is not somebody.
We're not like, this isn't to continue
Imagine
the date. This is to
marrying
get the
into
fuck
that.
out of the house.
Imagine marrying into that.
No.
family. Like, and you know, I can't know what it must feel like to be a parent. Like, I cannot know. I can't understand how difficult it must be, like to watch your child grow up and to put them into the world with all of the
Right.
scary things that exist in the world, and know that they've got to
but you're
figure it
doing
out.
your
But
kid a
but-
disservice.
That's right.
But this is
This.
so unsettling, like so genuinely like uncomfortable.
Background fucking check. I mean, like,
But you know what? I almost understand a background check more than I understand. Like, I understand
but you
a
would
background
never
check.
say anything to them.
I would never say
No.
anything. Quietly getting a background check. Listen, a little overbearing, but I'm also like, okay, like people are weird.
I get
Whatever.
it.
But I would not like.
This is so.
It's
next
so
level.
beyond like to be like, we thought that you were the kind of man who would have dinner with us
Ugh, it's so awkward.
on a
dude.
So
first
am I
date.
dating
Right.
your daughter
Who
or
are
the
you?
whole family?
The whole family.
You're courting.
Later
That's what you're
received
doing.
a torrent of text messages and calls to the general sentiment of, you were supposed to be better than this. I don't respond for a day.
You were the one. You were the chosen one.
I don't respond for a day before telling them, that this is not normal or healthy. I refuse to be any part of it and will be blocking their
Yes.
number and filing a restraining order if I find them lurking
I
around.
fucking love how direct this person is. Like
Yeah.
this person is just
Not
like,
fucking around.
this isn't
This is-
normal. This
no.
isn't healthy.
This
Like,
isn't how this works.
this
It's
isn't
not how
right.
any of this works.
No. God. Just like, wow.
The dad on recon. It's
Okay.
just like-
embarrassing.
Just-
oh my
Stop.
God.
Ugh.
Well, I'm really excited about my Tainted Love this week. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I turned to one of my all-time favorite sources for Tainted Love.
Dateline.
No, Texas Monthly.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Skip? What's his face?
It's not Skip Hollinsworth,
Oh.
who is my favorite
yeah.
contributor, journalist, writer for that. But this is Texas Monthly. Article is called "Love and Death in Silicon Prairie." It's actually right now a big race between HBO Max and Hulu are both working
Optioning
on
this.
this story. They're filming. They've started filming.
Both of them have started
Yes.
filming?
Love and Death
Oh.
is going to star Elizabeth Olsen,
Oh.
and Candy is the other one it was going to star Elizabeth Moss, but she had to pull out due to
Stop.
scheduling conflicts, and so now it's going to be Jessica Biel.
Okay, so hold on. So is Jessica Biel Hulu and Elizabeth Olsen HBO? Of course it is.
Yep.
Listen, no offense, but I want HBO to get this. Like, I just feel like I don't
Yeah.
even know what the story is yet, but
Yeah.
I'm like, they do documentaries.
Yeah.
Yes. So, okay, this is the story of Candy Montgomery. Okay.
Candy. I love a candy.
Candy. I bet you know it. It is an older story. Candy Montgomery, 30 years old,
Okay.
lived in Fairview with her husband, Pat, an engineer at Texas Instruments, and their 2 kids in 1980.
This is the most like 2.5 kids and a picket fence, Candy and Pat,
In the 80s.
working for Texas Instruments.
Is
Yep.
it- where'd you say, Houston?
This is in like Wiley, Texas,
Okay.
Collins County. It's outside. It's the Dallas-Fort Worth area,
Okay.
but it's like, so this story actually really starts in 78.
Oh, gosh.
And
The story's
so
as old as I am.
during this time, like a lot of people were leaving to the suburbs, and the suburbs were getting a little farther and farther outside of Dallas Fort Worth. And you know, the husbands would get up in the morning and drive to Texas Instruments or whatever, and the wives would stay home with the kids and do church stuff and whatever. But
Oh God!
Sorry, I just
do
spit on my
church
mic.
stuff. I love that you're like,
She's like,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
He got up and went to Texas Instruments, and the wife would
she
stay
was-
home, tease her hair, and go to do church
bonbons.
stuff. Like,
exactly. But this is the point: is that Candy was
gotta be
this
bored as fuck.
petite, blonde, and impish ex-army brat, blessed with an easy rapport from strangers and bored out of her fucking
Of course she
mind.
is.
Yes.
Of fucking course
I
she
can't
is.
Wait. Tell me everything.
She's like, we can only have so many tea parties.
Mm-hmm.
Enough.
They've been married for a few years, settled into routine in their idyllic country life. She was enrolled in a writing class. She was just, bored. Just bored. She was excelling, getting A's, but when she would show her husband, try to engage and try to have those fireworks and that passion with Pat, he was just really dismissive of her and uninterested, which led to arguments and fury on Candy's side. So for several weeks,
Dump his ass.
Candy had been
Bitch,
talking.
just leave.
right?
Like already I'm like, go.
Just go.
Just go.
So Candy decides, she's talking to her friends about you know what I'm going to do? This is the year I'm going to have an affair.
Oh.
She planned it out. Is she a Capricorn? She penciled that shit in. She opened up her planner.
She said, as of 2020. No, wait.
She actually,
that is
it's so funny. She must be a Capricorn
That
because
is-
wait until this story progresses. Because
Oh, wow.
she is quite the planner.
Uh-oh.
So Candy wanted to shake up her
nervous.
I love it.
very boring life with Pat, and she was explicit about the kind of affair she was interested in.
Damn.
Transcendent sex.
Oh,
As she put it, I want fireworks.
she's got Sting just like cut out from a magazine,
Yeah.
taped into her
On her
planner.
storyboard.
Yeah.
She's like, this is my...
She's like, we're getting tantric in this motherfucker
That's
immediately.
right. You know, it's the late 70s, you know. So late summer day in 78, one of the things that she did, you know, along with doing the kids and stuff, is she was really active in her church. And they did lots of stuff like summer volleyball. And so late...
That's not where I thought this was going to go. I'm not gonna lie.
Late summer day, she ends up bumping into Alan Gore on the church volleyball court.
Al Gore. Oh my God.
Not-
what?
Not
the internet's Al Gore.
The internet's Al Gore. A different Alan Gore. And she thinks he smells sexy.
I'm sorry. She thinks he smells sexy.
Yeah, she
Okay,
notices.
those pheromones are like through the roof.
Yeah.
She notices his
Cool, cool.
smell.
Very
Now,
cool.
This is her friend Betty's husband.
Oh,
no.
no. There's always a Betty.
Betty is going to be pissed.
Now, she'd only known him for 9 months, but he was outgoing and involved in the church and funny. And, you know, they say, oh, Candy and Betty were friends, but it was kind of that loose association where it's like,
Are they frenemies?
you know each other.
they know each other. They went to the same church, and their children, their young children, were friends and would go back and forth for sleepovers sometimes. So they
They know each other.
They were-
The end.
yeah, they weren't
Dude.
like calling each other up and gossiping or anything
Also,
like
can
that.
I just say, like, as
Betty
someone
and Al
who
Gore.
is Betty and Al Gore, as someone who is far removed from this kind of life, this
Yeah.
like suburban, like mom with kids, like couples
Yes.
with kids kind of like life, there is nothing more like salacious to me than this thing where it's just like, I go over to this couple's house. Our kids have play dates, and like the tension in that living room between Al Gore
and
Candy.
and Candy.
Yeah.
Right? Whenever fucking Betty gets up to go get some cucumber sandwiches while the
Right.
kids are playing upstairs. Like,
Yep.
like,
oh yeah, the set,
You're like
the
a
wood,
fly on the fucking
wood
wall.
paneling.
amazing.
Yeah.
I,
Oh.
like just like a stone fireplace. I'd love to see it. Okay.
Now Betty was a beautiful, but kind of like subdued person, very quiet, not as involved in the church and stuff like that. She was just kind of introverted. In
She's
college,
like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, yes. And she's like, oh, this is
I mean,
Okay.
whatever. But in college, she had fallen in love with her math teacher.
Oh.
But for whatever reason, and nobody really knows, she just showed up one day married to Alan.
Oh, she
She's-
got pregnant is what?
Well, she's just one of those people also that was like, she had a reputation for being complaining and like unhappy.
So what you're trying to
and
say is that she
dour.
deserved this?
No, I'm trying
'Cause
to.
that's what
I'm
that-
trying to say that Alan viewed her that way, but now looking back, her symptoms actually point to postpartum. Little understood at the time.
Yeah.
That she wasn't ever like a bubbly personality, but she definitely started to get a lot of anxiety. Like around the time she got pregnant for the first time, she hated when Alan had to travel. She hated him being gone for long stretches. She was like,
She's like,
complaining of
stay
aches
home.
and pains all the time. And he's like, I have to go and save the climate change, you
well,
know?
I mean, like postpartum anxiety is actually a real thing too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, like I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, but like I used to watch Raw Beauty Christie a lot
Yeah.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
And she had a baby and was very, very open and honest about her like postpartum anxiety problems, like just increased, intense like anxiety.
Yeah, and what it seems like with how she was described and everything, and she would go to the doctor and they would just give her painkillers and
Oh
show
my
her, which is
God.
so
Oh,
funny that we
cool.
just
Oh, yeah,
talked about that
exactly.
last week. So what it seems like, and what a lot of people looking back now are thinking that it's postpartum.
Jesus. Here's some pain meds.
Here's some pain
Shut
meds.
up.
Go away. You're hysterical.
Have some sedatives. Go to sleep. Yeah.
Oh, God.
So there was just really like, for Alan, it had become a real drag. Like there was no joy or
too
upbeat
bad.
things.
poor Al
in
Gore.
the house. Yeah,
Alan.
Al Gore's like, this sucks. And the only sex that she wanted from him was very mechanical, and it was based like around her ovulation because they decided like she's unhappy. Maybe she just needs to
Another
get knocked
baby
up
will
again.
fix it.
That'll help.
Yep.
Boy.
So Candy and Alan, it just began with small flirtations that could be explained away the way that most affairs do. They chatted longer and longer after choir practice. He teased her about her volleyball skills or would wink at her.
Little did he know that he
She-
was penciled in.
Yep.
For
Right into
tantric.
that diary for tantric. Yeah. She had a goal date in mind. She was manifesting.
So one night after practice, Candy gets into the passenger seat of his car and blurts out, she's been thinking about him a lot lately and she's attracted to him. But then she immediately gets out and leaves. And Alan spends the next week thinking about her constantly and how different she was from his wife, Betty. So they decide to meet up for lunch one day while Alan is getting tires replaced for his truck. So romantic.
Oh my God.
This is about the most 80s
So
story I've ever
Texas.
heard.
Yeah.
And talk about whether or not they should start an affair. And they try to get the rules
She's like, I've
straight.
had it penciled in.
Right. But like, let's talk pros and cons. I brought my notepad.
They actually do make a pros and cons.
Stop.
Of course they fucking do. She is a Capricorn.
Seriously.
That is
practical.
That is
practical.
Practical.
Listen.
It was just sex, no emotional involvement.
Well, that's not something that you could pencil in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's a very Capricorn energy to think that you can, for sure.
Yeah.
Neither one wants to end their marriage. Both are attracted to each other. And the next few months are spent as foreplay and planning and talking about the affair.
Oh my God. By the time they do it, it is tantric. Jesus Christ.
So they come up with this set of rules. If either one of them ever wanted to end the affair for whatever reason, it would end. No questions asked. If either one became too
simple.
emotionally
Sounds
involved,
smart.
the affair would end. If they ever started taking risks that shouldn't be taking, the affair would end. All expenses, food, motel room, gasoline would be shared equally.
Okay, well, I'm on board with that one.
mean,
so
honestly,
This is
yeah.
This is so extra.
Oh my God.
They would meet only on weekdays.
They prick their thumb and put their thumbprint on the contract.
No, that's not practical enough, Cassie.
Yeah.
That's too
Well, they
woo-woo
signed
for
it first, and then
them.
they did the thumbprint over it.
Yes. A contract was written up.
Yeah.
They got it notarized.
Now, they would only meet on weekdays while their spouses were at work, and Candy would be in charge of fixing lunch on the days they met so that they
What?
could have more time. They figured they would need all of Alan's 2-hour lunch.
Jesus Christ.
First of all,
where the fuck are you
Texas,
working?
Does he work at Texas Instruments?
Or do you
Is that
work in Denmark?
Yeah, he's
Is that
one
part of that?
Yeah, exactly.
part of the package there?
No, they would meet on a Tuesday or a Thursday once every 2 weeks. That was because Candy was free only on days when her little boy attended the Playdate preschool at Allen Methodist Church.
Look, I gotta tell you, like, I appreciate the planning. I understand, like, a lot went into this. That sounds like too much. It sounds like too much. Like,
They spent
I'm like,
months
you've got
talking
to
about this.
Wow.
Stop it. This is a second job at this point, and I don't want it.
And also at this point, like, if you spend so much time talking about something, there's no way it lives
It can't. It can't. It will not.
I don't know. I think there's something about, okay, hear me out.
Okay.
For this little tiny sidebar that I'm going to tell. Sometimes, like when we didn't have a lot of money and we were like trying to like make plans for like the kids to go on vacation or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'd be like plan a Disney trip. Half of the fun was planning the Disney trip. Like you're just like planning like where you're going to spend each time, like where we're going to do this ride and what we're going to eat that day and da da da. And it was the planning was as fun as the actual vacation itself. And it never did it. I mean, it's Disney World. You're not going to meet
it's a good time.
expectations, right? Like, but I mean, it just feels like, I don't know, like you've read a like a hot novel where you're just like, oh shit. That
The
will they, won't they?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is my shit. Will they, won't they is
Yeah.
like my favorite.
They
trope.
will.
Yeah.
Now-
Spoiler
they,
alert.
oh,
They will.
They will.
They
but
will.
it's going to be so hot when they do.
But as somebody that is chronically an overthinker, I am a lot of times I think I build up things in my
big.
head
Me
too big.
Me too. I actually feel like my chart is a real curse because being like a Pisces sun and a Capricorn moon is just like the overthinking and the daydreaming
and the empathy.
situation.
Yeah.
Nightmare. Like truly.
Yeah. No, my trifecta is a real bummer.
Mess.
Yeah. It's a real like just
I literally just did this like last week and I still don't remember what mine was.
I had to take a screenshot of my chart so that I could reference it later because I always forget it.
Now, once their overthought affair and the rules were set, they finally set their very first date to do it.
See, I'm with you in terms of like, I love a will they, won't they. I love the tension building. I love all of that. But I do feel like you can over plan to the point where like, how could this possibly be hot now? Because it's just like,
that's true.
We're going to get together and it's going to be like, okay, now time
to
make
do
for
it.
the sex.
Yeah.
You know, like
We have a 2-hour lunch window. So
It's a lot of pressure.
yeah.
it's December 12th, 1978. They met at the Continental Hotel and Candy made chicken. And
The way you said it.
And Candy made chicken.
Was it fried chicken? It had to be, right? Like, you can't, like, present some fucking boiled chicken.
And Candy made chicken.
I know it's a real Keith
Just
Morrison.
chicken? Also, I'm sorry. Wait. I'm really sorry. This has nothing to do with
No,
the story.
she had a
but
whole spread.
I really feel like, listen, just hear me out. I really feel like fried chicken, I'm assuming it was fried chicken because any other kind is really a misstep.
So listen, like this bitch had to wake up early, get her kids ready for school. She had to pressed her negligee, like did all the things.
The hair.
Al Gore just went to work.
Yeah.
And then showed up.
Piece of shit. And then also, but okay.
And then her husband comes home and he's like, I was thinking about that chicken tonight for dinner. What'd you make? She's like, side eye.
I really feel like fried chicken is very much a misstep. Like it is it's greasy. It's a hands-on situation. It takes a while to eat, right? Because you got to work around bones and shit. And then like if there's
You're sold that it is fried chicken, by the way.
It has to be. What else could it be?
I
could
don't
literally be
think
any other
I
fucking
think
kind of
it was a
chicken.
grilled chicken breast.
Grilled chicken
But
breast?
they did
that is
like
not a sexy
Why
meal.
are we even?
I'm sorry, but a grilled chicken breast is not a sexy meal. Like that is a meal you're having when you're on like the Atkins diet and you're trying to fucking like.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry, but all of this is bad. It's
Poor
bad.
Thomas.
So now, so then they have sex, and it's okay for her, and mind blowing for Alan.
Of course it is.
He was inexperienced. He had never been with anyone but Betty, but eager to learn, which Candy took as a good sign that maybe he can improve.
Oh, honey.
On his part, Candy was like a goddess. She was responsive and moving and energetic, everything that Betty wasn't in bed. But after just a few meetups, Candy and her coaching had to admit that sex with Alan was not fireworks, no matter how much she tried to teach him. However, she was worried she was beginning to love him. Their conversations are what she looked forward to the most. And she began to rely on his kindness, flirtation, and attention, things that her marriage was missing. Now, on his end, even though the sex was amazing, guilt began to creep in for Alan. Betty was pregnant with child number 2 at this point, and his biggest fear was her going into labor while he was taking one of his quote-unquote long lunches. So by July of 1979, so that's like 6 months, the affair began to dwindle, and painfully he tried to pull away. The baby was born soon after, and Betty finally agreed to marriage counseling. So, like everything else they did, it was related to the church. Their church had a weekend retreat called Methodist Marriage Encounter. And it changes them. They finally communicate, and Alan, like, listens to Betty, hears what she's saying, and, like, recognize, like, they communicate. They have conversations. The section of the Texas Monthly article where they're talking about this weekend that they had to do a lot of journaling, a lot of just like they weren't allowed like outside influences like TV, newspaper, anything like that. They just had to like sit and ask each other questions and talk to each other and be there and be with each other. And it really like works for them. Like, of course, Alan doesn't bring up the affair or whatever, but
Al Gore doesn't.
Al Gore doesn't
come clean
to being a cheater. But as soon as they're back, Alan wants nothing to do with Candy anymore and ends the affair to focus on his family.
It's in the contract, bitch.
For her part,
she's like, we said 6 months.
Yeah. Candy is like, okay, yeah, this is a lot of work. I have to cook lunch every time. It's just like, it's like extra and the sex is not that great. So yeah. She's like fine to let it go too. She's like, all right.
So this is the end of the story.
Yeah, it's like this is not. This sounds like a very amicable tainted love so far.
Yeah.
Now it's 1980. Alan was away on a business trip on Friday, June 13th, and he knows that Betty hates to be alone, and he becomes concerned because she's not answering any of his phone calls. Like, she's like, this is weird. Like, we have 2 kids at home. Maybe she's busy with the kids, but like, she's so anxious about me having to do this work trip. And so he like was doing the right thing, like trying to call her before he got like on the plane, tried to call when the plane lands, tried to call later, like before the conference. It was like,
right. Cause this is 1980. So you have to be like in a destination before.
Right. So he asked his neighbor to knock on the front door to see if Betty was home. When she didn't answer, he called Candy to see if she had heard from his wife.
Why are you calling Candy?
Why would Candy have heard from Betty?
Well, Candy had their daughter Elisa over for a play date and assured him nothing was wrong. She claimed...
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. You have to stop taking your kids over there. Like, if you had an affair with somebody and like you've broken it off now, the play dates are done, son.
But then how do you explain that?
You say, like, I don't know, I'm getting a weird vibe from Betty.
Yeah.
I don't think we should go over there anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
The end.
So Candy had their daughter Elisa over. She claimed she last saw Betty when she was picking up Elisa's swimsuit and she was fine. Alan made more phone calls and learned that the lights in his house were on and both cars were in the driveway, but Betty wasn't answering the door. So neighbors entered the home several hours after he first suspected something was wrong, and the search team found the Gore's infant daughter in her crib crying and Betty's mutilated body in the utility room. She was so bloody that they initially thought that she had shot herself. Like, that's what people thought, was that she had committed suicide at first. Now, after hearing of his wife's death, Alan went to the Montgomerys' home to tell them called the Montgomerys to tell them the devastating news and asked them to continue to watch Elisa for him. Now, an investigation led the police to realize Betty had been killed by an axe.
Jesus.
Oh, my God.
They also found a very small, bloody footprint at the crime scene.
How small?
The discovery prompted Candy to destroy her summer sandals with a pair of garden shears.
Ma'am, that is the most suspicious thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
Sus.
Spoiler alert.
Now,
because you just gave it all away,
yeah.
bitch. What
Whole
the
hand.
fuck?
As the last person to see Betty alive, the whole town knows Candy was the last person. But they saw her throughout the day, and she was so well liked in the community that everyone's like, this has got to be a mistake. It's got to be a transient.
I gotta admit, like, you know, if this was someone, having lived in a small town, if this was someone I knew and I'd seen them like in the morning and they came back into the market in the afternoon and they seemed like normal, like I'd be like, oh no, there's no way. Like, this is someone I know. Like, they seem fine. Like, there's no way they could have killed somebody between that period.
They didn't tell me.
Yeah, they seemed okay, you know.
And police were actually, they questioned her a few times, but her story was very consistent. It made sense completely. Everyone around town was like, yeah, no, we saw her. She was normal. She wasn't like
check her
covered
day
in
planner.
blood.
Does it say murder Betty with an axe? And she probably didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. But then Alan eventually confessed to having an affair with Candy that he had ended a few months prior, and that's what finally led police to think that it was a motive for killing Betty. So Candy's charged with murder, and released on bail, but with the full support of the church. So she hires Don Crowder, a lawyer she knew from the church, to represent her, who was like not a criminal attorney. He did like civil work or whatever.
Listen, I do real estate law, but
yeah, for sure.
I'll
It's
totally
all the
help
same,
out.
right? Law is law.
Law is law. So he's representing her, and which actually turns out to be a good thing because he's not a typical criminal defense lawyer. He's like so flabbergasted by this whole situation that he sends her to a psychiatrist. So she meets with Dr. Fred Faison, a psychiatrist and clinical hypnotist, to help her remember
This was 1980. So
what
that
happened.
tracks.
What happened on the day of Betty's murder for her trial. Now, Dr. Faison does like a few sessions with her, and he determines that there was a moment within this whole thing where Betty did something to trigger a childhood trauma. But this is Candy's story of what happened.
Again, it's 1980.
Okay.
This was
This
peak,
is-
like repressed memory.
This is
time
exactly.
period. Yeah.
So the trial happens. They decide to keep it in that county. So like people that are friends with Candy are on the fucking jury and all this shit.
Stop it right
And
now.
everybody is riveted. They're like,
Yeah.
like, let's hear. Candy takes the stand and she's like, this is what happened. So she has Elisa, and Elisa wants to sleep over with her daughter. And so she's like, great, I'll call Betty, ask her if it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. We're going to the pool, so I need to go pick up her swimsuit. So Betty's not answering. She figures she's probably busy with the baby. Candy's like, I'll just run over. It's fine. So she runs over. And again, the affair had been over for like 6 months. It was a mutual thing that they both were like over. So she's apparently fine enough to interact with Betty. But when she opens the door, Betty has like a blank look on her face. So Candy's like, hey, we want to take her. We're going to go see Star Wars tonight. And we'll
run to the pool. I'm so
we'll
confused.
take her to the pool, and then we're going to Star Wars, and she wants to stay the night or whatever. Betty's like, that's fine. Her swimsuit is in the utility room, like it's in the washer. So Candy goes past her to go to the utility room.
Well, that's weird right away because I'm
Yeah.
like, if my daughter, my hypothetical daughter is going over to someone else's house, I have a bag made for them already with their swimsuit in it. If I know they're going to the pool, there's a bag with
It's already set up.
swimsuit,
Night
sunscreen,
gear,
towel,
baby, yeah.
clothes for the next day, and all of her like nighttime stuff. Like,
Yep.
why would I be like, oh yeah,
Wait.
come on in and go get her swimsuit?
Oh my God, I love your hypothetical baby.
Oh yeah, so my
With
Elijah
Elijah
Woods,
Woods.
baby.
We're definitely getting an app to see what that
Oh my
looks like.
God. Now everybody's going to expect it. So you guys got to do it.
So she's like bent over like the washing machine in the utility room, getting out the swimsuit, and she hears a noise behind her, and it's Betty, and she has an axe in her hand.
I don't think that's happened.
And Betty,
That sounds fake.
point blank, asks her, "Are you having an affair with my husband?"
She's like, nope.
and she's like, "Nope." And she's like, "I know you're having an affair with Al."
I am not.
And she's like, "Yeah, but it ended months ago." And Betty goes, like, tightens her grip on the axe and is like, "You can't have him." And Candy's like, "I don't want him."
In
Betty's
the
like
history
that
of things
mayonnaise
that
shit.
sound fake, this is the this is
100%
fake story.
100%.
Then apparently Betty picks up the axe, like as if she's going to swing it, and says, "Shh." And that sound triggers Candy's repressed childhood rage of being shushed when she was very small. And so then she struggles to gain the axe. Betty's able to bring it down once and chops Candy's toe. And then Candy is able to get a hold of the axe and swings it 41 times into Betty's head.
Okay,
All right.
ma'am.
40 of
Her
which
repressed memory.
occurred while her heart was still beating. So it's intense. the courtroom is like, wait, what? That is the wildest story. And then she's
going to get off, isn't she?
No.
She
doesn't get off.
Gets in the shower afterwards. She's covered in blood. She washes herself up in Betty's house in her shower.
Where are the kids?
That's my question. I just
gets back in and continues to run her errands for the rest of the day. Just
so
fine.
Margaret, who sees her at like the grocery,
everybody, she's like completely normal. The only thing she does is she changes her shoes because she has to bandage her toe. She doesn't want anybody to see that her toe was hurt when she axe murdered Betty. So
she just like scooped up Betty's kids and was just
left the baby there, which thankfully the baby was like fine or whatever, but was like literally screaming, dehydrated, like the whole 9 yards by the time they broke in to find Betty. So yeah, the court buys it.
I was going to say, had to.
Found not
You're
guilty.
Fucking with
she had people who
me.
knew her on the jury.
But she had people who knew Betty on the fucking jury.
But yeah, she is actually now Candy changed her name to Candy Wheeler. She is a mental health professional.
Shut your mouth.
For troubled teens. They actually, Pat stood by her side and they were married for several years, but they did eventually get divorced.
I'm sorry. Her defense was shh.
Yeah. 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 And like
that sounds about white.
Yeah.
Oh.
They the Al also remarried like almost immediately to somebody else, but then they later divorced.
What?
His kids are estranged from him. Like his in-laws, Betty's parents raised his daughters.
Jesus.
I'm sorry, you took 3 months to plan an affair with your neighbor, but you got remarried immediately after that same neighbor murdered your wife?
Yeah. And so, yeah, Love and Death is slated to be on HBO Max with Elizabeth Olsen, and Candy is going to be on Hulu.
Wait.
Both are filming.
Elizabeth Olsen. Okay.
Right
I can
now.
literally see Elizabeth Olsen as this character.
But yeah,
Wow.
there's actually another small-time CBS television movie called A Killing in a Small Town, which aired in 1990 starring Barbara Hershey as Candy Montgomery in an awful wig. If I'm
That's
not saying.
extremely upsetting. Like, that is so... Imagine if you were Betty's family. Like, and you have to know that. Like, Betty didn't have the affair. Like,
That's right.
You know, like... Not that if you have an affair, it means that you deserve to. But
how does she get off? Like on what?
Self-defense.
It's the 1980s. So like this wasn't going to be the thing that I talked about for my like what am I watching? But I know that you watched it, Christina. But the Many Faces of Billy Milligan, I watched it, and the early 1980s. Where it was that repressed memory shit. It's what started the Satanic Panic.
Yeah.
Like that whole thing about like. All of this stuff happened to you when you were a kid and you don't remember it, and the smallest thing can trigger it, and so you can get off on like an insanity plea.
Yeah,
like it's just what a time.
The other thing that I think though is I'm like, there's no way that this was a like is very much agreed by everybody that like the affair was over and quite
why did she
mutually,
do it
and why would she do it?
It's
but
not
also
like they ended up together.
Also,
No.
yeah, Alan's like, Betty was completely normal that morning that I left, and she did not know about the affair. And actually, they did find a letter that Betty had been writing that morning to her parents talking about her friend Candy was watching Elisa.
Yeah, no,
and stuff. So it's
like her
doesn't-
story
none of this
is
makes
her story
sense.
is. I agree with Cassie. Like that's the most fake thing I've ever heard. Like that didn't happen. Like
But it's
I just
not.
don't believe that happened like that at all.
exactly. So the only people that know what happened in that house are Candy and Betty, and you know that's it. And you know one of them, that's the story that
Could
she
you
told,
live
and
with
the other one is dead.
yourself for the rest of your life?
And for again, but for to what end? Like what did she
Exactly.
gain?
Nothing.
It's so weird. I don't know. It's so weird.
Isn't that the strangest
It
story?
is.
And I'm so looking forward to the HBO one.
Yeah. I can already see Elizabeth Olsen as this character.
Yeah, me
she's
too.
gonna nail
Elizabeth
it.
Moss would have been an interesting choice.
I think she
though,
would have been
too.
a great choice. She's got such an intensity.
Yeah.
She's got real Capricorn energy.
Yeah,
Like, I feel like
exactly.
she would have done very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm struggling with Jessica Biel.
Me
on this
too.
one.
Me
So
too.
am I, so am I.
I'm thinking like they're gonna try to make it like the sinner kind of thing, but I don't feel
No.
the Beal.
No,
for
I
this
don't
one.
either. I don't either.
Feel the Beal.
Whew. Wow, that was a really good one. Like that was
There we
Well,
go.
that was a journey.
a journey.
yeah.
It was a journey.
What do you
Yeah,
guys
but did she kill 5 husbands? Huh?
No.
Did she? Did
I
she?
mean-
So speaking of HBO Max, I texted you guys because I finally watched The Vow.
Oh, yeah.
And I
It's
know
a very like long.
It's too
like,
long.
As
Too
a
long.
documentary, it's like
it's 9 parts.
long.
It's way too long. Way too many parts.
way too many
For sure. And I also think that I know that there's going to be a Vow part 2, which is how they left it at the
How?
end. Because they left it at the end, the very last episode, which infuriated me. The very last episode of The Vow is them talking to Keith Raniere in prison and him saying basically like there's 2 sides to every story. So do you want to hear it? And there's
No,
going to be a Vow part
I
2.
don't.
I 100% do
I
not
don't
want
want
to
to
hear
hear
it.
any of what this
don't wanna
motherfucker
hear it.
says.
In
Let
fact-
him fade away to obscurity.
I 100% feel like they gave me too much of him
Yeah.
in this series. I was just like, why are
He
you?
said he looked like a hamster.
That
and it's not
motherfucker
wrong.
does. That man looks like a hamster. I'm like, and he's so look. Okay, I've said this to you both tons of times, and I stand by it. I try not to judge people who are involved in groups like this or in cults because everyone has something they're susceptible to.
Right.
And I say that all the time because I'm like, listen, if I had been a 25-year-old in 1960 something and the People's Temple came to me preaching what they were preaching, I probably would have joined that shit.
Yep.
Because I was just like, that's something that I'm susceptible to. That what they were preaching is something that I would be into. So everyone has their thing. So I try not to judge. But this fucking man, I was so skeeved out every time he spoke that I was like,
Some people have a charisma in real life, though. There's just something
and
to be said about that.
I feel that,
Yeah.
like, I can see how he appealed to people.
Yeah.
He just wouldn't have appealed to me. He's just not my thing. Like, everyone has a thing. He's just not my thing.
There's just some people who do. They just put out energy that you want to be
Yeah.
around and you want to be part of, and they're, so I get it. I see what you're saying. Like, I get how people
absolutely.
could get involved in that.
Yeah,
for sure.
or it's part of a movement or something that you do feel passionate about.
Sure.
Like, I understand it, but this guy like skeeves me out to like just the nth degree. Like when I'm watching him talk, just not for me. But it is interesting. It's way too long, but it is kind of like an interesting look at a different kind of cult because
Yeah.
it's definitely like a businessy
It
MLM
very
type
is
cult.
a business, like business coaching, or
Which
whatever.
is very weird because you
It's
don't
a triangle.
Yeah.
With 4 sides and a square bottom is what
everybody
this is.
wears sashes.
Oh, God.
And then outside of that, I did finish Squid Game, which wow, listen, I'm a broken human being.
That's what I hear.
have not seen it, and I don't know that I want to.
It's really good.
I
It
know,
is really
everybody
good.
loves it. I mean,
there will
obviously.
be a season 2, I think, and I'm looking forward to it. But man, yeah, okay, I'm gonna leave it at that because like
Okay.
if
Yeah.
you've seen it, you've seen it. If you haven't, I don't want to spoil anything for you. So there you go.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I have been watching the Lost Symbol, which is the Dan
Oh.
Brown series
Yeah.
that's on Peacock.
Mm-hmm.
We watched the 4 free episodes, and if anybody has a Peacock code that they want to give me, I will gladly take it and use it so that I can
Nice.
finish it.
Yeah. No. I can help you out.
Noise.
But I watched something that I am so excited exists. Last night we binged and did not mean to all 6 episodes of a new documentary called The Next Thing You Eat with David Chang.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
incredible.
Chris watched it.
As somebody that has
loves
worked in
David
the
Chang.
restaurant industry for a long time, this is looking at the future of restaurants, the future of food, what we're moving to with everything that's happening with climate change and everything that's happened to restaurants with COVID, the inequality, the bad practices that we have. It's very, very interesting. I think for anybody that enjoys food, I think would be interested in
Wait, this was on Netflix?
Hulu.
Okay. I house sit for my friend who they do production, and David Chang was shooting something for it was either Hulu or Netflix. I wonder if it's this.
Probably.
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be. It's so good. The way that it's filmed and the people that they talk to. I mean, they talk to the people that are doing Impossible Burgers. They talk to ranchers. Nice. They talk to people like what's happening with sushi right now. Like,
wow.
you know, we don't have enough fish in the ocean for there to be sushi at 7-Eleven.
It's an interesting conversation to be having, like about the sustainability of all this stuff, because it's quite frankly just not sustainable.
Right.
Like the way that we have lived for the last like century is just, it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
And like you would think that the one thing that we could agree on that would be like a bipartisan issue is like, hey, we have to make sure that the earth exists for the next like however many centuries.
It's interesting to me because I took an anthropology class, and we were talking about just in general, like when, like how the world has evolved and how people like from hunter-gatherer to like, to farming, agriculture, how drastically that changed our world.
Yeah.
Because it was almost like you weren't meant to live in one place. We were meant to move from place to place and forage off the things and foraging and all that stuff. And so it's interesting. There's a lot of interesting conversation to be had about all the layers of that.
Right. Which is why you should definitely watch this. And for me, it has an added level, I think, of emotional because from working in restaurants for so many years, like basically since I was 12 was the first time I was washing dishes at a restaurant. And I've seen how much that industry has changed, how much it has exploited a lot of its workers, how much, just the entire system and what it had to go through to even make it through COVID, and the people exploiting restaurants now. It's so deep, and it's really well done. And I really appreciated that this thing was out in the world. So,
and it was called one more time,
The Next Thing You Eat.
Yeah, like
eat.
that's
plus it's got a touch of that dystopian future stuff that I
love it.
I love.
Living in late stage capitalism is a real trip, isn't it? It's a real treat, right? Like, what's around the corner? We don't know. It's gonna be great.
Also started watching Deadwood, which
I've watched all of Deadwood. I've watched it from beginning to end. It is. Look, you watch it in 2021 and you're like, because there's so much happening in that show that is fucked up. But the writing is Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Like, it is
I
so
can listen
incredible.
to Keith Carradine talk forever.
Yeah.
And Ian McShane.
Oh,
Stop.
yeah.
Oh, amazing. And Timothy Oliphant. Hot. Okay.
Oh, I love it. Oh, my God.
Well, if you guys have something we should watch, if you have stories to tell us,
Give us some stories.
Yeah. It's going into the holidays. You know, we love those Meet the Parents. Send them our way. Go to our one-stop shop of a website. It's myworstatepodcast.com. And we love you so much.
Cheers.
This is a Glass Box Media Podcast.